Will the Las Vegas Raiders trade Aiden O'Connell? How does the Derek Carr news affect the Raiders? And Quinn Ewers wants to play for Pete Carroll. Yo, what is up, Raider Nation? It's your boy Samoa Raider, back at it again with yet another video. If this is the very first time you guys are coming across the channel and you love Raiders content, then hit that subscribe button, hit that notification icon button just to notify you guys when I upload more videos just like this. We are on the verge of 50,000 subscribers on the channel, so hit that sub if you haven't already. With that being said, let's get right into the news. And first things first, let's talk about Aiden O'Connell and his future in Las Vegas. Now, according to Vic Tafur and to Sean Reed of The Athletic, they have reported that the Raiders may put a trade on the table for a quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, during the NFL draft weekend, saying still bringing in a young quarterback to learn behind Smith makes sense, and we think the Raiders might trade Aiden O'Connell on draft weekend. New minority owner Tom Brady likes the idea of a rookie quarterback sitting and soaking it all in, and there are some interesting options even in what is a down year in a draft for quarterbacks. With Geno Smith being locked in the next few years on a new deal to be the new starting QB, questions remain as to, are the Raiders going to draft a quarterback, and how is that going to impact Aiden O'Connell's future? Now, I do believe that there could be a possibility where it actually can happen, especially knowing the Raiders. And if we go into the draft and we're thinking about getting a quarterback maybe in the first or second round, I can possibly see the Raiders moving on from Aiden O'Connell, especially if we're able to get somewhat of a day 3 pick, which I think that's what he's worth. Now, even with all the ups and downs that Aiden O'Connell has had to deal with being a Raider, he still seems like a viable, solid quarterback to back up any other quarterback in the league. And as much as I do criticize AOC, there is potential there. Now, in the 20 games that he's played as a Raider, he has thrown for 3,830 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, also being sacked 34 times. I do believe if the Raiders were offered a day 3 pick, I think that they would get the deal done, especially if there's a team out there looking to get a young quarterback that they could possibly mold. But, you know, at the end of the day, the Raiders really don't need to move on from him, but I would understand it if we were to bring in a young quarterback. Now, one team to kind of consider, ironically, is the New Orleans Saints, because that leads on to my next bit of news. According to Ian Rappaport, he broke the news today, tweeting out that Derek Carr is dealing with a shoulder injury that threatens his availability for next season, meaning Derek Carr could be out for the 2025 season, and the Saints could be looking for a new quarterback to start this upcoming year. So with that being said, how does this affect the Raiders? Well, first and foremost, I just talked about AOC, and if there's a team that's looking for a young quarterback to possibly step in as a starter, or at least to compete for the starting job, I think AOC could be that guy. And the Saints, if they were to call the Raiders and offer a day 3 pick, I think that would be more than enough to let him go over there and, you know, take over for Derek Carr, you know, somewhat of what he did over here in Las Vegas. But outside of all of that, the Saints right now hold the number 9 overall pick in this year's draft. And of course, the Raiders hold the 6th overall pick in this year's draft. And there is a strong possibility that Shedeur Sanders could drop in this year's draft. And if he's sitting there at number 6, who's to say that the New Orleans Saints doesn't ring up the Raiders and offers the Raiders the number 9 overall pick and maybe a 2nd or 3rd round pick to move up and get the guy that they want? I know that there's been a lot of ties, a lot of reports saying that the Saints are really interested in the Hall of Famer's son. But I also feel like the Raiders are really interested in him as well. And, you know, for me, if I was sitting there and Shedeur was available, I wouldn't even want to move on from the number 6 pick. I'd just draft him right then and there and let him sit behind Geno Smith. But in a whole different world, I know it seems a little bit enticing to move back in the draft and acquire more picks, especially knowing that the Raiders have as much needs as we do offensively and defensively. So as of right now, you know, I put 2 different scenarios together on what could realistically happen for the Raiders if we were to move back just 3 spots to that number 9 pick. So you guys let me know option A or even option B, what you guys would do in this scenario if we were to trade back. So the first option is trading away the 6th overall pick for the Saints' 1st round pick, which is 1-9, and also 240, which is their 2nd round pick. Or the Raiders could possibly get the Saints' 1st round pick and 3rd round pick to move up to number 6. Now, if I had to choose out of the 2, obviously it would be option A and get that 1st and 2nd round and just add more picks to the picks that we already have right now. But realistically, I feel like the Raiders could possibly just get a 3rd round pick. Even at that, the possibilities would be endless for the Raiders and who they could get in the 2nd round, especially knowing that we need to go out and get a running back, we need to go out and get a wide receiver, we need to go out and get a quarterback. Also go get some offensive line help. So if we can add more picks to this year's draft, then I'm all for it. And even if we don't end up getting Shedeur, that's totally fine with me. There's going to be other quarterbacks, whether you want to look at Jackson Dart, Jalen Moreau, heck, Will Howard, even Dylan Gabriel, and maybe even the next quarterback that I'm going to talk about right now, which is Quinn Ewers. Now, the former Longhorns quarterback, Quinn Ewers, made an appearance today on the Rich Eisen show and discussed his preparations for the NFL draft and briefly spoke on the potential of playing for the Raiders. And he spoke highly about wanting to play with Pete Carroll.
You know, Coach Carroll is awesome. You know, he just is always talking about compete. You know, that's like, I think he probably says that word 100 times a day, and it'd be super cool to be a part of a program, part of a franchise that, you know, they live and die by how they compete. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. You know, if you're in the building, he said you're either competing or you're not. There's no in between. And, you know, I feel like that's kind of how I already live. So it definitely would be cool.
And it's going to be a matter of, all right, what do you want? What's the best system fit? Quinn Ewers, Vegas, that Pete Carroll meeting, I would just say, file that one away.
Oh.
I would just say, I don't know.
Oh.
We don't know. The Saints certainly are a possibility there. Write it down. Good job, Brockman. And write it down and then don't check the odds on it because I can't give gambling advice. I'm just saying, Quinn Ewers, Raiders, to me, would make a ton of sense.
Interesting.
If after trading for and paying Geno, they don't want to use the number 6 pick on a quarterback, they're going to need to add somebody to the room. Could it potentially be Quinn Ewers?
Now, first off, man, you love to hear these young players talk highly of the coaches that we have. And this is one main reason why I really wanted Pete Carroll as our head coach, because he's a guy that doesn't only demand respect, but also has his resume and his career to back him up as well. He's done it for many years, from college to the NFL to now being in Las Vegas. There's going to be a lot of players that would love to play with him. And hearing that one of the top quarterbacks, well, I know he's not the top quarterback, but hearing that one of the quarterback prospects would love to come over here and play under him, at least to come in and compete, I think goes a long way. And knowing the mantra and knowing the theme of this year's, you know, the Raiders year in 2025 is to compete no matter where you're at, I think it's perfect for a guy like Quinn Ewers. So for me, if Quinn Ewers is sitting there in the 3rd round or maybe even the 4th round and the Raiders have already addressed other positions and still need a quarterback, I think he'd be a perfect option for the Raiders to select and bring him over here to Las Vegas to play under Pete Carroll. Ewers, to me, is a talented quarterback with the traits of being a starting quarterback in the league. He has the arm strength, quick release, and great throwing motion to make every single throw in the NFL. He also possesses the ability to get mobile when needed. Though he has struggled with some inconsistencies and injuries over the years, there's no denying that he has upside. And like I said before, for a head coach like Pete Carroll that loves competition, it'd be the perfect situation for Quinn Ewers. He's either going to come over here and sit and learn for a couple of years under Geno Smith, or he's going to come over here and beat out Geno Smith for the QB1 job. Though I think it's really unlikely that he actually does that, it wouldn't hurt to see some competition at training camp. The Raiders have already had their meeting with Quinn Ewers as well as a lot of other quarterback prospects in this year's draft, and Chip Kelly has also spoke highly about Quinn Ewers and his abilities to play football at the quarterback position. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders are sitting there in the 3rd or 4th round and Quinn Ewers is still available for the Raiders to go out there and select him and possibly make him the future quarterback of the Raiders. But what are your thoughts, Raider Nation? Would you guys mind getting Quinn Ewers in this year's draft if we were to get him in a 3rd or maybe even 4th round? Do you think that he could be a solid starting QB, or do you feel like there's another quarterback that you would rather get in the 3rd or 4th round? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, man. I don't want to waste any more of you guys' time, man. Of course, like always, man, hit that like button if you haven't already. And until the next video, this is your boy Simone Raider and your boys, yeah.